This is the layout of our menu. And it jumps into art, which is the very first theme. And then the second one is cinema. And then next one is fashion. And lastly, we have our music. So it has 4 cocktails in each of the section. And it has a little bit of the ingredients, of course, to know what you will get inside the drink, and a little bit of a synopsis of the story that we want to celebrate. So a little bit of a quote, either from the person itself or the art piece. And the way we designed our menu is it goes from very light alcohol content to the heaviest. So it's easier for our guests to understand it as well, in terms of if they're looking for something very specific, then it's easier for them to navigate through the menu. As a team, for the Volume 2 cocktail menu, we gathered inspiration from influential hallmarks of pop culture in the 60s. It was definitely a team effort in terms of choosing the stories and inspiration behind each drink that goes into the menu. But at the end of the day, we want our cocktails to tell a meaningful story. That's why we chose those ones. The Republic Bar is a bar that celebrates the decade and era of the 1960s. And one of the main reasons we named the bar Republic is because Singapore became a sovereign country, a republic of its own, during that decade and era as well in 1965. So we wanted to celebrate social and cultural revolutions during that time, give it a whole experience, be it in the drinks, the food, the whole concept, the space as well. So we start with the stories, and then we think about how we can translate them into a glass. We continue to focus on classic cocktail making techniques, but we try to use flavors, maybe the garnish, and even the overall aesthetic of the drink to translate or tell the story. So for Volume 2, it was, in a sense, a very data-driven menu for us because we were listening to what the favorites were from the very first volume, as well as what our guests would want to see more, or maybe that we weren't able to showcase during the Volume 1. So we listened to that, and that's how we focus on pop culture. And then from there, we decided to brainstorm with the team, come up with different unique stories that people might be familiar with, but not so much, not the entire world. And that's how we wanted it, because we wanted the menu to be very streamlined, that when you open the menu book, you'll read a few sentences and you'll be like, wow, that's really unique. But I do understand, I connect to it, because even in the modern age, people still love art. They still watch films, they listen to music, and everyone's creating their own fashion trend nowadays. So we saw that as this is a great connection of having the menu connect to our guests, and for them to understand that the 60s was a huge importance in terms of revolutionizing all of those themes of how modern art, cinema, fashion, and music are kind of translated as well. So what we do is we have a vision board as a team where we come up, so okay, we're now at 16 stories, this is going to be 16 drinks, what style of drinks do we want to have? And then we kind of just put it on another side of the vision board, and then okay, if we use a martini, does it translate to this drink? Will it be well received, aesthetic, flavor profile? Not okay, we scrap that idea, we go, maybe this is going to be an old fashioned. So that's usually how we do it, is mix and match. So there's definitely a lot of renditions. For the first menu, it took us 6 months. The second one, again, it took us 6 months. So it's really a lot of R&D, a lot of tweaking, I would say. And definitely a lot of brainstorming, because sometimes I may be the one in charge and driving the menu program, but I have a whole team behind me that are really talented and creative, but sometimes creativity maybe is good, but maybe it doesn't translate the story. So I have to hone that a bit, and it's flavors are really good, but I don't think it tells the story, so maybe let's go back to square one, see how we can reinvent that again, or maybe the look is a little bit more experimental, which I think would be a little bit weird that we are celebrating the era of the 60s, where it's like, you know, you have so much, let's say, like bubbles or smoke going on. So maybe it's like that's more for like modern techniques. Yeah. So we wanted to stick and stay true to who we are as a concept and as a brand and image, and that's how we want our menu and cocktails to be as well, to be received and enjoyed. Oh, there's a lot. So it's like if it's four categories and then you have four cocktails in each, that's gonna be 16 drinks. It's gonna be tough. But I would say one of my most favorite would be Glass in Bloom in the art section of the menu. So the inspiration of that drink talks about Dale Chihuly, and it's quite an important story for us because in the hotel, both east and west wing of the hotel houses a Dale Chihuly art piece, which is he's pretty popular for his glass blowing technique. When we were digging through his history, he didn't start out in his career, so he had paintings as well. But in the 60s, to be exact, 1965, he started honing his abilities to delve into hand glass blowing technique, and then he perfected that, and he became kind of like, as Andy Warhol is to pop art, I would say like Dale Chihuly would be to glass blowing, right? And that's where we were like, but glass is, I don't know how you taste glass, I don't know how you perceive it or like in a glass. So yeah, so we have a drink that is a Sazerac, which is a spirit forward cocktail. Usually it's just cognac, whiskey, and just a touch of sugar and some bitters. So it's very like right in your face as a classic drink. But for us, we wanted to be like, you know, spirit forward cocktails definitely is there to, you know, to have a little bit more of a kick, but we can enhance the flavor and maybe layer the flavor even more. So we were thinking, why not if we make this a very red color drink, because Republic is surrounded by pillars which we call home bars, and those home bars are they're all covered in Venetian red glass, and they're all hand carved specifically just for Republic. And we wanted to create like, you know what, like that glass is so cool, and like, you know, it's about the 60s. Let's create a drink that maybe resembles that color. So we added beetroot to the drink that gives it that very deep red color, and then to balance out and give it a bit of I would say viscosity and a bit of salinity, we added feta cheese. So it's quite unique when you look at just the wording of the menu. So it's like, oh, you have Remy Martin cognac, and then suddenly beetroot, and then after beetroot you see feta cheese, and it's that's interesting. And then so a lot of people are maybe thrown off in the beginning when they just read that it's like cheese in a cocktail, like that's weird. But when we tell them the story a little bit more, they were like, oh, okay, that's actually kind of cool. And then as the garnish to go back and translate that drink into the whole story of Dale Chihuly as well, we created this stained glass candy. So I think I watched one documentary about how like in films they were, you know, like breaking bottles in people's like actors' heads or breaking the glass. It was all made of like sugar. I was like intrigued, and so watch a lot of like pastry shows, and then from there I was like, okay, maybe we can, you know, ask our own pastry chefs and teach us and show us the way how we can, you know, make it better or put our own take on it. So we create like a clear film of candy, and then we added some like colors of purple and red, and then just kind of like mix it abstractly into that sheet, and it becomes this like stained glass. And then once you just like, you know, drop the whole sheet, it breaks into so many different pieces. And what's unique about that is really look like it's a broken glass. And people would usually ask like, what's this on my cocktail, right? Like that's the last thing you would want, is a broken glass on your cocktail. So so then we tell them like, oh, this is the story, and they're like fascinated that wow, it's more of a they connect to the cocktail even more because there's a story behind it. So they feel like, oh, now I understand what you're trying to do, why you chose this look, this color, this flavor, and yeah. And I feel like, it's the same with chefs and F&B in general is moving forward in this modern age. I would say the renaissance of modern cocktail drinking and enjoying like Michelin fine dining food as well is that even the chefs have stories to tell through their dishes. It's kind of like, it's not just individually, maybe they don't, but the whole experience tells like a bigger picture. And for us, we felt like that's how it should be, because then, I think people, as a standard in this day and age, to have an exceptional drink is just the standard. It's not the gold standard anymore. Like, that's how it should be. I paid you good money. You must make sure that you have to make me a great Negroni. If not, then, your bar is just going to be empty. No one's going to be coming back. But what do you think will make people come back even more, or would want to bring friends and family over? So we were thinking, like, I think, since we celebrate the past and we celebrate rock stars and icons of that history, let's tell them more about who they are, what they did, how they influence maybe how we perceive fashion this day and age, music as well. So that's how we went about with the first menu. Second menu, I think moving forward, it's going to be really about storytelling for us. And in Singapore, there are a few bars who are doing that as well. And I feel like that's what sets us apart is, being not just being your typical bartender or mixologist, doesn't matter whatever you want to call it, but, being like just a storyteller and bringing you to back maybe for, and opening your eyes to like, oh wow, like I didn't even think of that way. If you didn't explain the story, maybe I was just like, that was a lovely drink, that was unique, I'll definitely try that again, but there's no connection. Like, we have a drink called Lion City, and for us it's when we look at the ingredients, because it has kaya jam, which is a local spread in Southeast Asia, specifically to Singapore, where it has a little bit of flavor of pandan, coconut, and some other ingredients as well. And so for us, we were like, locals won't be fond of that, like, because it might attract international guests because it's quite unique and new for them, but maybe locally it's not. But when, like, during the launch, the media and the industry launch, and to the public launch as well, to our surprise, it's until today, it's one of the sought after cocktails. We were like, wow, yeah. I was like, that's unique, and people have different takes on it. They're reminded of childhood, of different memories as well because of the flavor. And yeah, for us, like, I would say, like, that's a little bit of a surprise. There's also a drink called Polka Dots, which I think it's gin, fig, dried figs we use, bergamot, and we were just kind of like playing around with, like, okay, like a little different citrus, a different sweetness from the dried figs, with a little bit of earthiness maybe, and then we created a drink like it's almost like a spritz or like a take on a gin and tonic, but people love it. Like, flavors, like, it looks a very simple drink, but people like just go wild for it. And for us in the beginning, it was like, it's a good flavor, I think people would like go for it, but because it's like a lighter version, maybe people might not be so into it. But yeah, it was like, to our surprise, people love that. There were already a few things that when you look at it on paper, it's like, I don't think that's gonna work, but then when the final product came out, it's like, actually that's really good. I would say like Leather Jacket would be one. It's like an old-fashioned, very simple. It's but we fat washed the bourbon with peanut butter. So that's like it's like almost creating like a PB&J old-fashioned. So we use peanut butter in the bourbon, and then for the sweet part we use roasted pecan. And then on top of the drink, which is the garnish, is the leather itself. It's made of raspberries. So it's quite yeah, it's quite unique in that sense that, like it's like almost like a breakfast drink, but it's like a very boozy drink at the same time. Yeah, so yeah, but definitely we're still learning which one would be the favorite. I would say when we built Republic, we've been, even before that, we've been known for our Irish coffee. So in each and every menu, people have always been asking, so what's going to be the Irish coffee in this menu? What's the name? What's the story? And what's the new rendition of this Irish coffee? So for us, it's for this volume 2 menu, it's in the music section. It's called Kim Sisters. And, people have, like, it's the third rendition, and I would say it's like the most sought after because people have always loved our Irish coffees and they always go back for more. And that's like for us here in Singapore in the industry, people have always been saying, like, if people are looking for Irish coffee, they always send them over to Republic to get their fix of Irish coffee. Especially now with the festive, everyone's looking for like warm drink. So yeah.